Hey, I'm Grant and welcome to the State of the Channel for April 16th. So, a couple things I want to talk about. So I had some more PTO. I actually have a whole bunch I need to burn and I still accrue it every month. So I'm trying to take basically every 2 weeks, take some time off so I can work on things. And basically this was after I did 2 extra days of PTO just to kind of get things done on my own personal projects, like some spring cleaning. But I worked on a bunch of stuff for the channel and I want to talk about that. So one, podcast is already done this week. That's a huge relief. I don't have to worry about that. I just have to edit it now. I'm kind of considering moving the podcast to be once a month instead of every 2 weeks, but we'll see how that works. Ultimately, I'd probably be happier with every 3 weeks or so. I'm not quite sure. I like the idea of a consistent schedule because I like the idea it's, every other Friday there's a podcast. I like that. Downside is that adds a lot of extra work for me right now, but I'm a hypocrite because while I don't want to work on a podcast every 2 weeks and I don't want it to be every month, but at the same time, I don't want to only make 12 podcasts a year. That seems like that's such a little commitment for an entire year, but I'll kind of feel it out. One idea is, in theory, if I get it down to 30 minutes solidly, I would do that, but it really does feel like 30 minutes is a small amount of time to fit the discussions I want in. It feels like either I am very rushed and have to just kind of say stuff at the end, or that by the time we finally get rolling, the best stuff is the part we're cutting, whereas it's the beginning where we're trying to build up some momentum. That's the stuff I'd kind of want to improve. So I don't know, it's just in my mind, just because every other project I do, because it's just me, is very flexible. So since a podcast is one, it's by far the biggest commitment of time. And then two, it's tied to having other people. It's definitely the hardest thing to get out. And I just want to make sure I can still do it and get the experience from it I want without it becoming where I basically just barely get it out every time and I'm not leaving myself with enough room or time to improve other things. So if I'm constantly putting out a fire, I never have the time to say improve it. So I could see if I move to every month instead of every 2 weeks, maybe all that extra time I could put into building the website. And then after that's done, come back to doing the podcast more often. Or if I could just figure out a format that works a little bit better and is easier for me. And this is something I've talked about plenty of times on the podcast, is just the podcast, you can basically sink an infinite amount of work into. If I wanted to, I could do very heavy edits. I could do lots of just additional flavor stuff in there. I could heavily edit that and then just that. All the extra planning stuff I could also do again for the audio podcast. But realistically, I don't want to spend 40 hours of work on a 1 hour podcast every 2 weeks. So you got to find somewhere in between. So it's just a sliding scale. I'm trying to find the point I like on. And if I could find things that reduce that while improving the quality, that's a very big deal. So one of the things I've always thought about is just doing if I wanted to reduce it to a really quick edit, right now I multicam so that I can say if one person's talking, switch to them, and then someone else answers, switch to them. And that improved it greatly. And if you knew the early podcast, what I would do is I would sometimes do a 2-person little window so they could talk to each other. And that's nice, but that takes way longer than multicam. I think it was significantly difficult to do that all the time. But in theory, if I could get the podcast to where there's nothing we need to cut out and everyone's prompt and paying attention, I could, for example, just do, say this week, it's just Andrew and I talking. I could just do a 2-person window and then I just have to watch it once. And then so long as no one does something stupid in that window, I don't really have to make any cuts. We're pretty much okay, but it does come up sometimes where someone might bump their mic and I would need to actually hide that and stuff like that. But if we could get that perfect, well then all of a sudden the podcast doesn't take 10 hours, it takes 1. And then that would be a ridiculously huge time saver for me and it would allow me to do so many other projects. But barring that, I'm right now kind of leaning because 2 weeks it does feel like it's just a little bit too much. And every week was way too much, I think, where it was every day it was it's a crisis and I wasn't making any progress. Again, I really wish there was somewhere in between, but it's really hard to do it every 3 weeks because then it's not consistent. It doesn't sync up with months. So if it was okay, it's the first week of this month, well, this month we have 2, and then next month we have another, and then this month we don't have one till 3 weeks in, and then we have it on week 2 of the next month. That's really confusing. And it ultimately doesn't matter. I could maybe switch it to do something like, even like every 15 days as a commitment, or something weird, like it comes out on the 15th. So like some months it's slightly easier. That would even be kind of nice, but we'll see. I like the idea of maybe doing it where it comes out on the 1st of every month or something. And that would give me time for other projects that I can spend a little more time on that make me better. So, because I have all these projects that I don't really do necessarily for just the attention. I do it to teach me things. So like the podcast was created for a couple of very specific reasons. One, I wanted something that I could show off to someone and they're like, oh, I get what this is. You know, like something like Dead Rising Master Run, that's kind of hard to explain to my coworkers. But if I say I have a video podcast, that clicks a little bit more. 2, live action is just innately different to do. So that teaches me about like lighting, actual physical equipment and running that stuff, actually editing live footage, which is weirdly different, and just doing a whole bunch of other things that don't necessarily come up in the gameplay stuff. So I like that, but I want to keep it going, but I need time for my other projects. And that brings me to the other thing I want to talk about is, I talked about when I was finishing Silent Hill, which is out all now in its entirety, is that the next one I wanted to kind of test a setup so I could do the entire thing in one go. Because then that means I can easily, on a single weekend like I did now, I sat down and I filmed the entirety of the next game. It's a game that's really dear to me. It's Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, the first one. And it's not that long. I think it's only like 10 hours or so. But the idea then is I can use like the 1 or 2 days that I have to do all of that. And then once I have the footage, which is really hard to get, it's a lot easier to say, sit down for 10 minutes and edit a little bit. Or, hey, I got 30 minutes while I'm waiting for, I don't know, my laundry to be done. Let me fit this in there. It's way easier to, makes it malleable for my schedule. So one of the things though I want to talk about is it's having a couple of issues. And I should have seen this coming because it's a PC game. It's actually a port from PlayStation 1 that I'm having running on Windows 7, I think now. And that causes some issues I'm trying to correct. And that's where I talk about where I actually feel like this is something where, while extremely annoying, I don't want to go and redo it and test a new setup because I've already sunk a lot of time into it. But I feel like here, I have something that's like, this is going to teach me how to solve a lot of issues, because I think I know what it is. I think the issue is it runs at 1980 by 1020. Not 1020. No, wait, 1920 by 1080 resolution. When I actually scale it and run it on my PC, which already was a huge deal to get it recorded in OBS, because I didn't want to use my Elgato on the same computer I'm recording on. That just seems like way too much work for the system, but maybe that's what I should have done. However, even though it is up-res to that because the game can render itself, it still has the FMVs, the full motion video cutscenes from the original PlayStation 1. Well, those are in some weird resolution. Like, it's not even like to scale down like 480p. I looked at it, it's like something weird, like the resolution's like 694 by 512 or something really ridiculous. And every time you have a cutscene, it basically closes the application and then reopens it in a new resolution. And OBS just has a stroke every time that happens. So, and it didn't actually happen. I actually did a test. So I did my due diligence. I thought that, hey, it was working, but apparently that in that first 15 minutes, that didn't happen. So here I have something where, while annoying, I think will teach me a lot, but it's going to take a lot of time. I think coming out on the other side of this, I'll have learned a lot about video and audio codecs and correcting and conversion and stuff, which is something I know I don't actually know a lot about, but it's going to take time. And already the podcast is also coming out this week. And here I see something where, man, here's this awesome thing that can teach me so much. And then I have the podcast. The podcast needs to come out by Friday. It needs to come out sooner. So I can already see like the times clashing. So I would like to kind of like reduce the podcast just so I can have everything fit together well. And this goes to a couple things I've been thinking about for a while. Is right now I would define my channel by several individual projects, but not really anything overarching. Like, there's no main series I produce. There is no kind of set schedule. I just have general ideas of what I do. Like, I used to stream every Tuesday. Well, then I fell off of that because I had other things I needed to work on, and I wasn't really playing anything that was really stream like inducing. So that changed. But I'm kind of at the point with the channel where I need to start moving towards a greater design. And when I say channel, I mean everything. So that also counts like the website for me and the other coding projects I'm doing. Those are all involved, but it's easier to say the channel because that's the biggest concrete thing. And so what I'd like to do is move towards this just kind of greater vision I'd like to try. So one of the things being is I'd actually like, these are just ramblings, so I would still love to get to the point where a Let's Play every single day. And that's something where I think I can do that. I just need to stop swapping up formats. So the benefit of also doing Soul Reaver is there's like at least 3 games I'd like to record, and I already own 3 of them. So I'm hoping I can just blast through them in tandem, and then again, just like in one weekend record, say, like yeah, every weekend record 1 game. Let's say that makes 10 episodes. So you basically get a 3 episode surplus every week. So I make 10 episodes, and by the time I record again, I played 7, right? So I'm hoping to do that to get ahead. I would also like to use Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver to maybe bring back the Master Run series. It's something I really do feel like that's a good idea. It's just very hard to know what form that needs to take for a certain game. And one of the things I would like is, in addition to being like with Dead Rising, where it's a very technical way of how to play the game very well, I would like the other side for like something like Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, where it's a little more like a retrospective or a documentary, where while I'll still be giving like tips, I guess, for people who might be new watching it or just like want a cool thing, it'd be mainly more lore focused, story focused. Like, hey, did you know this is why this is the way it is? Something like that. That's something I've always saw the other side of Master Run being. And I still feel like it's a good idea, and I feel like this might be a good place to reintroduce that. The downside is that takes a lot of time to produce. Like, I know with the Dead Rising 1, the Dead Rising 1 Master Run, it took so long to produce because 1, I didn't know what I was doing. But 2, to actually be quote unquote Master Run, I would just say, oh, I need to do a little guide on this boss for this episode. I guess I'll just beat this boss 10 times in a row, and you just do it over and over and over. And that was fine then because it was easy to fit in. But now I have the skills to do better stuff than just play video games all day. So yeah, I don't know how easy it is to repeat. And again, it matters mostly for what game. Like some games, you know, I could probably sit down and just do it and it's fine. There's other games, like if I want to do a master run for something crazy, like I said, like Borderlands or something, that would take a lot of just data gathering and practice before I would feel like I'm on a level. And I can't do that for every game. Like it works for games that I'm already kind of well versed in, but if I ever found, I need to find a way to make it repeatable. That's a big issue with Master Run, is I can't, it's so one-off for each individual game. I don't know if I had some arbitrary game X, would I know and have a template to convert it to a good Master Run video? That is the big gap I need to solve, because I feel like from the time I made it, I always felt it was a good, neat idea, and it still does well. Like, yeah, the quality of it's not up to my current standard, but there's still value in that series, and I knew the idea was a good one. I just don't know how to recreate it. So that's one thing I want to bring back. And then I have another idea for just a one-man show based off kind of things that I like. That would just be a live action show. And Legacy of Kain would be a good starting topic for that. And that's way down the line. The whole point of also doing that Let's Play is just because I need footage anyway, so why not do a Let's Play? Because then I'll get the footage and then I can also just have that coming out. And then that would start forming more of this overall structure of what the content I produce is. It would no longer be these individual unrelated projects like the podcast. It would be more of, this is my channel, I produce these series. They all correlate generally with other stuff I'm doing on things I might be, I don't know, tweeting about or writing about on the website, stuff like that. And it's a more cohesive vision, and that's what I'd like to move towards. So, and there's going to be a whole lot of growing pains in there as I feel out what I like and what I don't like. Because overall, my, I guess, planning with the channel is I have vague ideas of what I want to do. But if you told me like a year and a half ago that I would be, what, 15, 16 episodes into a live action podcast, I would not have expected that. Like, I didn't set out to make one. It just kind of happened once I knew I had the skills. And that's what I'm doing here, where I ultimately don't know what series I think I'm going to be producing that would take off or be what I'm known for. I just know that I have a general vision of what paths to take and skills to work on to help get me the things I need to know to make that decision, even if I have no idea what the decision is going to be. Same way where doing a lot of this stuff is ultimately, in my eyes, for a greater career, building more towards a coding project. I have like kind of just like brewing in my mind that has, I think, a lot of potential for just myself to use, and I would like to make greater. But all of that can't even start happening until I have built up the experience and the technical expertise for making this stuff, and then also built the entire website and have that. And it's going to be a long time before that happens because there's a lot to get through. So that's just kind of what I want to talk about, because I was planning on doing a ton of editing for Legacy of Kain today, and with that aspect ratio resolution issue, I'm instead running this handbrake of everything through it again, and that's going to take a while. So I'm just queuing up every single thing I recorded this weekend and letting it convert for like the next 26 hours. So we'll see if that comes out on the other side. But those are just some thoughts I had, and so let me know if there's certain things you want to see on the channel or not. I should talk about, I also started a small series with no commitments. It's just Lightworks tutorials. Lightworks is the editor I use for my videos, and it's maybe not the best. I should probably eventually graduate to more like a Sony Vegas or something, but right now it's exactly what I need, and it's a great thing to learn on because it is already way better than I need, and I can slowly bring in more features as I learn what they are and how to use them. So I just know that some of the tutorials really suck. You can search anything, and it's basically some dude with a terrible mic making a terrible tutorial video, which, can I just rant? I don't understand how this, like, I can watch a dude who's a professional video editor and has to sit and watch, like, professionally filmed videos, and then when he makes one, it's complete trash. I don't understand how that happens. But so I want to put my own stuff out there, because the other side is you have like the guys who actually work on Lightworks who make amazing tutorials, but I feel like it's meant more for like an actual professional editor. So I'm trying to make this in the middle ground where it was for someone like me who just kind of came in. I don't know any of the terms, and I make no assumptions. Like, I know when going to actually interface with people who like make Lightworks, I'm like, hey, I'm just going to throw out what I do, because for all I know, I might have some fundamentally wrong things, versus a professional editor probably has the perfect system and they're trying to adapt it to a new thing. So I'm trying to branch that middle ground. So the way I started with was just hey, as of today, this is how I make these videos. This is how I do this effect. Probably not perfect. Like, for example, I give an example of how I do an image on the screen, and there's at least 3 other ways you can do that that are probably better than how I do it, but I just threw that out there because then at least it's someone who can hopefully speak on camera and can answer some questions. I actually got some comments already. I don't know if that series is going to be perfect, but I think it's got some lasting power just because it's very searchable. Unfortunately, the big thing I would need to conquer ultimately with the channel in terms of just improving it is I need subscribers, and to do that I need to run good long series. So that ultimately doesn't help with that goal because it's just gonna be searchable. There's no reason that would make you want to subscribe to the channel, but I figured, hey, in my head, I knew it was a good idea. I know I can help some people, so I made them, I threw them out there. I think I have 7 filmed from this weekend from PTO that I did. I just need to go edit them. But since I'm not gonna commit to like one every Friday or anything, because it doesn't need a timetable, it should just go out as soon as possible. I'll just kind of put them out when I can. So like right now, if I didn't have D&D, we're going to stream today, I would be editing all those just because I can't do anything because I have to convert all these Legacy of Kain videos. But so that's a long ramble. I've had lots of things to add because of the long weekend. I've had to work on things, and I just need time to solve the issues I'm encountering, but it might take a while. So hopefully still good things on the horizon. I'm happy. I'm learning a lot. Like, as annoying as this is, I do think this teaches me important stuff, so I'm just curious to be what it's gonna be like on the other side, and hopefully makes me a better editor and a better, I don't know, producer of content. But as always, you can reach me over on my Twitter. It's at taking4grantd, or on my email, it's grant@taking4grantd.com, and I'll be back again next week. Thanks for watching.